and at Duxford in 2000, he was privileged to lead a so-called big wing formation of 19 Spitfires and Hurricanes. That must have been a sight and sound to behold. And the following year he led a team of 5 Hawker Hunters at the Royal International Air Tattoo held at RAF Cottesmore that year. And that display was judged the best overall flying demonstration, and the team was awarded the King Hussein Memorial Sword. Just like Rich Goodwin before in the Muscle Pit Special, flying seems to run in Rod's family. His eldest son has recently retired from the RAF and is now a Hawk instructor in the United Arab Emirates, while his daughter is working with the World Health Organization in Geneva. Now performing a classic victory roll. Let's give Rod a wave as he flies along. I'm not sure if that was his final manoeuvre. If it wasn't, we can give him another wave later. These aircraft, the Bulldogs, are operated by civilians, and this particular one is actually owned by 3 pilots who used to fly it in a University Air Squadron. This particular aircraft was built in 1973, used by Yorkshire University Air Squadron at RAF Finningley and Church Fenton. Showing us a nice close-up view of the underside.
The motto of the Clacton Memorial flight is "Lest we forget." It originally formed in 1957 at a famous fighter station, RAF Biggin Hill in Kent, and it was made up of 3 Spitfires. One of them, the Spitfire we'll be seeing displaying here. And then with the addition of the Hurricane to the flight was renamed the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and then it was given a Lancaster as well. There may well be many people in the crowd here today with family or friends who served in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War. I know there is somebody here today, one Jill Harris, whose father, Squadron Leader Bill Drinkle, DFC, was a guest of honour at the Clacton Air Show in the past. And we like to dedicate this fly past. He was a Lancaster captain in the Second World War, and we like to dedicate this fly past of the 2 Lancasters to his memory as he recently passed away. Looks like both aircraft are identical, but there are a few differences, aren't there? The engines, for one thing.
Yes, the engines on our Canadian Lancaster Mark 10 are Packard.
aircraft types famous for their role in the Battle of Britain, but indeed both types served throughout the Second World War. The Hurricane first flew some 5 months before the Spitfire and was a great advance when it first entered RAF service, as it was the first RAF fighter to have 8 machine guns, fully retractable undercarriage, and to be capable of more than 300 miles an hour. And it is the Hurricane that's leading the two fighters. Cannon pointing out the front of it. In contrast to the Spitfire is the Mark 19, so that's the photo reconnaissance version, which was unarmed. It relied on the very high speed line from that Griffin engine, gave it more than 2,000 horsepower, and allowed it to fly at very high altitude, up to 42,000 feet, taking photographs typically of what forces were arranged against the Allies or the results of bomb damage. A founding member of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Hurricanes operated in every theatre of war during the Second World War. And they were more numerous during the Battle of Britain than the Spitfire. And because of that, but also the fact that typically the Hurricanes would engage the bomber fleet while the Spitfires would take on the fighter top cover, typically the Messerschmitt 109. It was because of that that the Hurricanes actually shot down more enemy aircraft than the Spitfires during the Battle of Britain. The Spitfire itself was more numerous throughout the war, some 14,500 Hurricanes produced, compared to just over 20,000 Spitfires for the RAF, and another couple of thousand for the Royal Navy and the Sea Fire.
I think this is it for the first
22
session,
different marks
and then there's a break for an hour, and then there's another hour and a half.
Interestingly, up the same year that the Lancaster finished in RAF service.
Over there.
It's challenging photography as well.
It's a real tribute to the advanced design of the Spitfire, taken at the time by R.J. Mitchell, and what was basically the same airframe. It had by the end of its career an engine more than twice the power. The power of
Coast down.
to carry a far greater armament as well.
Yeah.
Very different construction. The Hurricane, like predecessor biplanes, which typically were the fighters of the RAF beforehand. Alloy construction. That wooden canvas construction has its advantage. The cannon shell from an enemy. I bet you don't get sick of seeing that size.
I never do. I'm trying to
Bright enough, is it?
It's amazing to see the two aircraft flying together. So none of us ever dreamed it would be possible, but thankfully came together this year.
And
Took off on what was their 13th mission to attack a set of German rail yards near the French town of Cambrai. On their way to the target, the aircraft was attacked by a German night fighter. 3 cannon shells struck the aircraft, one setting fire to a hydraulic line in the aft part of the fuselage. The rear gunner, Captain Opie, was stuck in his turret, and while the captain gave the order to abandon the aircraft, Andrew went to aid his friend, and as a consequence of that, ended up catching fire. He managed to get out of the aircraft after a valiant attempt to save his friend, but unfortunately, he made a very hard landing in France and died very shortly after as a result of his burns. Captain Opie survived the aircraft crash. Evidence gathered by the RAF and the RCAF, Andrew Menarski was awarded a posthumous Victoria for having dedicated our aircraft.
Try and know a bit more about the camera.
That's a real stirring story, and of course Andrew Menarski, just one of the 55,000 plus young men from RAF Bomber Command who gave their lives, making the ultimate sacrifice in the Second World War. And it's strange to think that of the some 7,300 Lancasters that were manufactured, almost half of which were actually lost on operations in the Second World War, these are the only 2 airworthy examples left. For those who wish to know, it's the RAF's Lancaster that's leading, and the Canadian Lancaster is second. Who's on board the Canadian Lancaster at the moment?
I understand that Don Schofield and Leon Evans are 2 lead pilots on the Lancaster, and interestingly enough, both these gentlemen were born in the United Kingdom and made their way to Canada later on in life, and both served Air Canada later on as airline pilots. Leon Evans, in fact, is the chief pilot in our museum, and Don Schofield is currently the world's highest time Lancaster pilot with over 800 flying hours on the aircraft.
And I was saying earlier that the Lancasters ceased being operational in the RAF, apart from this one that we have here, in 1954, but it was another 10 years of service they performed with the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Yes, we used a number of the 430 Lancs that we built in Canada after the post-war, mainly serving in the Cold War as maritime patrol aircraft, photo survey aircraft, and search and rescue aircraft. Our particular Lancaster flew many times over the Atlantic with NATO, looking for Soviet submarines, and later on was a search and rescue aircraft. She was retired in 1963, and all Lancasters were retired from the RCAF in 64. In fact, in April 64, that was the last time any Lancasters flew together in any number.
Now we can see the fighters rejoining the formations. One quick question for you, Keith. Did your Lancaster ever see active service in the war?
Part of it did. Our aircraft was built in June 45, and in the Cold War suffered a landing accident in Trenton in 1952. The Air Force decided to repair the aircraft rather than scrap it, so they took the center section from a combat veteran, which had done 20 trips over Germany. So when I'm asked that question back in Canada, I have to say, did it fly on off? The answer is yes and no. Part of it did.
And in fact, it's interesting, if you want to find out more about the aircraft and the Andrew Menarski story, there's a great brochure that you can pick up to commemorate the tour. That's available from the